G'day guys, JB here, coming to you with another video here on JB's NBA. It's been 3 months or so since I last uploaded a video, a change of jobs, a massive holiday period, bit of a spell as well. It's just been a massive few months in my life, so it's great to be back uploading onto the channel. Of course, the big story of the 2021-22 NBA season is that the NBA is celebrating its 75th anniversary, and in line with a lot of other people, I have compiled a list of who I think are the 75 greatest players in NBA history. I have previously done my own personal top 50 list. I've added 25 players to that list. I haven't put the other 25 players in chronological order. There's a fair bit of moving and shaking to be done there, and a lot of writing as well. When I did my top 50 list, it was well over 100 pages long. It was well over 50,000 words, and there was an honourable mentions list amongst all of those as well. I don't have an honourable mentions list for this one, but it is fair to say that I have skewed my list more defensively minded, so there will be some players who may have been really great offensively and really thrown points on the board. But did it really lead to some success? Probably not really, so you may not see them in this list. It may not reflect well for you, however, it is my list. And again, one thing I find very curious with a lot of people, they say they value defense and they value the all-round value of the game. Then you see their list, you see their rankings and the way they grade players and teams. They don't really value defense as much as they outwardly proclaim they do. However, you'll find in this list I'm very heavily skewed defensively as well. A great range in this list. You'll find players dating right back to the late 1940s, early 50s, right through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and certainly the modern game as well. I don't have it in order, but you will find that I have it in alphabetical order of first name. You will also find that I have a tagline for each player in a great little summary as well. So without further ado, let's get into my 75 greatest players list of all time, starting with Allen Iverson, who I would deem the greatest what if he was taller story in NBA history. Iverson averaged 26.7 points, 3.7 rebounds, 6.2 assists, 2.2 steals, 0.2 blocks, and 3.6 turnovers a game. For his career, AI shot 42.5% from the field, 31.3% from deep, and 78% from the free throw line. Iverson is a one-time MVP, an 11-time All-Star, a 2-time All-Star Game MVP, a 3-time All-NBA first-team selection, a 3-time All-NBA second-team selection, a 1-time All-NBA third-team selection. He has won the Rookie of the Year award, made the All-Rookie first team, a 4-time scoring champion, and a 3-time steals leader. Next up, we have Ben Wallace. And for me, again, he's the only lone All-Star to lead a championship team and not average 10 points per game in that All-Star season. Ben Wallace averaging less than 10 points per game in 03-04 when he was the lone All-Star for the 2003-04 champion Detroit Pistons. Wallace for a career averaged 5.7 points, 9.6 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.3 steals, and 2 blocks a game, averaging only 1 turnover per game along with that. Big Ben, as they called him, shot 47.4 from the field, only 13.7 from deep, very minimal attempts there, and really was a pretty subpar free throw shooter at 41.4% from the line. Again, Ben Wallace, a 1-time champion, a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, a 4-time All-Star. He made 3 All-NBA second teams, 2 All-NBA third teams, 5 All-Defensive first teams, and 1 All-Defensive second team. He was a 2-time rebounding leader and a 1-time blocks leader. Also key to note that Ben Wallace finished 7th in MVP voting in 03-04 with less than 10 points per game. It is the second highest finish of any player to ever not average 10 points per game in a season, and still managed to poll in the top 10 of MVP voting. Next on my list, it's going to be pretty easy here, and that's Bill Russell. And for me, Bill Russell is the greatest defender and the greatest leader in the history of basketball. Russell for career averaged 15.1 points, 22.5 rebounds and 4.3 assists. You'll notice with some of these older guys, especially Russell being a key contingent here, 44% from the field, but relative to the time span was pretty much at the mark or just above the mark for league average on field goal percentage. And I have to admit, subpar free throw shooter no matter what, 56.1 from the line. But a resume like no other, an 11-time champion, a 5-time league MVP, a 12-time All-Star, 1-time All-Star Game MVP, made 3 All-NBA first teams, 8 All-NBA second teams. The only year he was able to be selected onto an all-defensive team, he made the first team, was also a 4-time rebounding leader, and as we know, the name of the Finals MVP trophy is the Bill Russell Finals MVP trophy. I'll let you do some basic equations as to why that may be the case. Moving on next, we have Bill Sharman, former teammate of Bill Russell, who era for era could be argued the greatest free throw shooter of all time, and I do not exaggerate when I say that, but Bill Sharman for a career, 17.8 points, 3.9 rebounds and 3 assists. Subpar shooting on the grand scheme of things, but again, error for error, not too bad at 42.6% from the field. But on dodgy rims, with dodgy equipment, with a lack of film to study on free throw technique, open air gyms, shot 88.3 from the charity stripe. You go and see how far above the average that was then, and look pretty much the equivalent of today. Again, Bill Sharman stacks right up there as the greatest free throw shooter of all time. A 4-time champion, an 8-time All-Star, was a 1-time All-Star Game MVP, made 4 All-NBA first teams and 3 All-NBA second teams. Next on my 75 greatest players list, Big Red himself, Bill Walton, who for mine is the greatest what if he stayed healthy case in NBA history. Less than 500 games, Bill Walton, 13.3 points, 10.5 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 0.8 steals and 2.2 blocks per game with 2.7 turnovers to go with that. Walton, reliable from the field, 52.1% from the field. Very minimal career three-point attempts, and particularly back then for a big, never made a three-pointer. And by limited, I mean you can probably count on your hands and feet just exactly how many threes he took for a career. 2/3 of his free throws, a 66% career free throw shooter. But Bill Walton, despite the injury-plagued run that he had, was a 2-time champion, a 1-time Finals MVP, a 1-time League MVP, a 2-time All-Star, made 1 All-NBA first team and 1 All-NBA second team, was a 2-time All-Defensive first team member, won the 6th Man of the Year award once, led the league in rebounding once, and led the league in block shots once. Again, Bill Walton, a genuine case for the greatest what if he stayed healthy story of all time. And when you consider the hype of him coming out of college and the rivalry he was meant to have with the likes of a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and a Moses Malone and a Hakeem Olajuwon for most of his career, again, for me, the greatest what if he stayed healthy story in NBA history. Up next, we have the Kangaroo Kid, Billy Cunningham. And for me, the most forgotten about career, 20-10 guy in league history. Yes, career NBA averages of at least 20 points, 10 rebounds. For his career, he was 20.8 points per game and 10.1 rebounds per game to go along with 4.3 assists, 1.8 steals and 0.5 blocks. Cunningham shot 45.2% from the field, 26.3% from deep and 73% from the stripe. In his career, Billy Cunningham won an NBA championship, was a 4-time All-Star, made 3 All-NBA first teams, 1 All-NBA second team, and was also selected to the All-Rookie first team. Next up, we have the Houdini of the hardwood, Bob Cousy. And Bob Cousy remains the only point guard to ever make 10 All-NBA first teams. Not Magic Johnson, not Oscar Robertson, not Isaiah Thomas, not John Stockton, not Steph Curry, not Walt Frazier, not Tiny Archibald, not Chris Paul, not Steve Nash, not Jason Kidd. None of those guys. Bob Cousy, the only guy to make 10 All-NBA first teams. For a career, Cousy averaged 18.4 points, 5.2 rebounds and 7.5 assists. Shot 37.5% from the field. Now that would be even for its time below average. But look at that comparative to the league today and look at what would be the equal. You'll find that there would be some very good players who error for error compare for Bob Cousy, and a very good free throw shooter for his error, and certainly in general at 80.3%. Cousy was a 6-time champion. He was the second MVP in league history in 1956-57, a 13-time All-Star, a 2-time All-Star Game MVP. Once again, 10 All-NBA first-team selections, the only point guard with 10 All-NBA first-team selections, a 2-time All-NBA second-team member, and led the league in assists a whopping 8 times. Bob Cousy, for me, still sits on the Mount Rushmore of point guards in league history. Moving on, we have Bob Dandridge, and Bob Dandridge has the most points scored in the NBA Finals throughout the 1970s. This guy was a big game player, a big stage player, and he was the key cog in 2 championship teams. That would be the 1978 Washington Bullets and the 1971 Milwaukee Bucks, playing second fiddle to Kareem and Oscar, along with Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld. Dandridge for a career had 18.5 points, 6.8 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.6 blocks on 2.7 turnovers, shot a nice 48.4% from the field, 16.7 from deep, and 78% from the stripe. A 2-time champion, as I mentioned, a 4-time All-Star, 1 All-NBA second team, 1 All-Defensive first team, and a member of his rookie class. He was the selected to the All-Rookie first team. And a lot of people are going to go, well, geez, he didn't really achieve much. But when you're such a key cog in 2 significant championship teams, and you're proven through a decade with arguably the most parity in league history to have the most finals points, more finals points than anyone else, you end up in the Hall of Fame. It's a pretty big nod for me. And I think the resume and how key he was to team success is massive for him, and that is a big reason why he gets a nod on my list. Moving on to Bob McAdoo. Bob McAdoo is probably the most forgotten about superstar player in league history. We're talking about a guy who was competing peak for peak with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and we all know the resume and the record of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Something tells me you might get a mention in this list a little later on. Bob McAdoo for a career averaged 22.1 points, 9.4 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1 steal and 1.5 blocks a game on 2.6 turnovers. Shot over 50% from the field at 50.3%, 8.1% from deep, and made 3/4 of his free throws as a big, 75.4%. One of the great stretch small forwards, one of the great stretch power forwards in league history, and probably the second or third well-known stretch power forward in league history after Elvin Hayes and Bob Pettit. Bob McAdoo was a 2-time NBA champ. He was a 1-time league MVP, beating out Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was a 5-time All-Star. He made the All-NBA first team 1 time, the All-NBA second team 1 time, was the Rookie of the Year for his rookie class, made the All-Rookie first team, and a 3-time scoring champion, again competing up against the likes of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at his peak. Next up, another stretch power forward, in fact the original stretch power forward, and that is the great Bob Pettit. And Bob Pettit, again, the only man to defeat Bill Russell and those Celtics teams in the NBA Finals, closed out the 1958 NBA Finals with a 50-piece, something that we'd only seen happen again here certainly back in 2021 with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Bob Pettit, an absolute beast in his time, 26.4 points, 16.2 rebounds and 3 assists per game for a career. Shot 43.6%. Again, though, go and compare the field goal to league average back then, and you'll find Pettit certainly was an efficient scorer for his time, and for a big 76.1 from the free throw line. Bob Pettit was a 1-time NBA champion in the only Hawks championship in their franchise lineage. He was a 2-time league MVP, the inaugural league MVP of the NBA in 1956, and again won the award in 1959. An 11-time All-Star, the first player to win 4 All-Star Game MVP awards, other than Kobe Bryant, who took some 50-odd seasons, almost 60 seasons, to complete and compete with Pettit on that award scale. A 10-time All-NBA first-team member, Bob Pettit all but one season of his career on the All-NBA first team. That other season, he was the All-NBA second team. I believe he is also the only player to have had a 10-year career at this stage other than LeBron James and score an average at least 20 points per game in all of those. He was the Rookie of the Year in his first season, was a two-time scoring champion and a one-time league rebounding champion. Next on my list is the great Bobby Jones of Philadelphia fame, and he's possibly the most forgotten about elite defender in league history and arguably one of the most forgotten about transitional players from the ABA as well. Bobby Jones, 11.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game and 1.3 blocks per game on 1.8 turnovers. Jones shot 55% from the field for his career, didn't make a three but didn't take a hell of a lot either and shot 78% from the field. Bobby Jones, a one-time champion with the 1983 Philadelphia 76ers, a four-time All-Star, 8 all-defensive first-team selections. Not 8 all-defensive selections for a career, 8 all-defensive first-team selections. It is key to note that he was also an all-first-team defender in the last years of the ABA as well, so really able to transition that level of his game to the NBA, and was also a one-time Six-Man of the Year. Bobby Jones, a very key cog in one of the great teams in NBA history. Coming up next, the round mound of rebound, Charles Barkley. And he's arguably the greatest undersized player for his position or for any position ever. A true 6'4", 6'5" power forward who, in 15 of his 16 years in the NBA, averaged double-digit rebounds. For a career, Charles was 22.1 points, 11.7 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 1.5 steals and 0.8 blocks per game on 3.1 turnovers. Charles, an uber-efficient scorer in his prime, finished his career with 54.1% shooting from the field. At the time of his retirement, and of guys to have attempted 200 threes in his career, he was also the least efficient, but shot 26.6% from three and 73.5% from the stripe. Charles, a one-time MVP in 92-93, an 11-time All-Star, a one-time All-Star Game MVP, made 5 All-NBA first teams, 5 All-NBA second teams, and an All-NBA third team, made the All-Rookie first team of his freshman class, and was a one-time league leading rebounder. Next on the list is Chris Paul, and for me, Chris Paul is probably the most underrated impact player of the modern NBA. It's really simple there for Chris Paul. Where he goes, he turns teams around, they have success. You know, they're usually pretty close to being winners as well. Chris Paul, 18.2 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, 9.5 assists per game. Chris Paul, one of the 10 greatest point guards in league history for my liking. 2.1 steals per game and 0.9 blocks per game on only 2.4 turnovers. And I do believe of the elite point guards in league history, he is the all-time leader in assist-to-turnover ratio. 47.3 from the field, undersized, is really good. 37% from deep, undersized, is really good. And 87% from the free throw line. We're entering really elite territory for any player there. Chris Paul really needing a championship essentially just to cap off his career. CP3, a 12-time All-Star, a one-time All-Star Game MVP. He has made 4 All-NBA first teams, 5 All-NBA second teams, and 1 All-NBA first team. He is a 7-time All-Defensive first team member, a 2-time All-Defensive second team member. He won the Rookie of the Year and was selected to the All-Rookie first team in his freshman class, a 4-time league leader in assists and a 6-time steals leader. Chris Paul, one of the better point guards, certainly in NBA history, and in his era, I don't think anyone, you could argue, in the last 20 years has been a better point guard than Chris Paul. Moving on to Clyde the Glide Drexler, and the best way to summarise Clyde is that he's probably the second greatest Blazer of all time, but he is certainly one of the 5 greatest shooting guards of all time. Clyde averaged 20.4 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, 5.6 assists per game, 2 steals and 0.7 blocks per game on 2.7 turnovers for his career. Shot 47.2% from the field, you know, doing pretty well there. That's probably your minimum line that you'd want for an elite starting guard and certainly a player of his calibre. 31.8% from deep. Didn't take him as much back in the day. 30%, 33% was a pass mark for most players around the league, and 78% from the stripe. Clyde, a one-time champion with the Houston Rockets in 94-95, a 10-time All-Star, made 1 All-NBA first team, 2 All-NBA second teams, and 2 All-NBA third teams. And unfortunately, Clyde, another victim of Michael Jordan in his era, but a really dynamic two-way player. Clyde Drexler, a hell of an athlete and a hell of a player in his own right. Dave Cowens is next on my list, and he's arguably the most forgotten about league MVP of all time, and would probably sit atop the greatest Celtics centre list of all time if it wasn't some guy called Bill Russell. For his career, Cowens averaged 17.6 points, 13.6 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 1.1 steals, and 0.9 blocks per game, with only 2.2 turnovers. 46% from the field, not great, more of an outside scoring centre. 7.1% from deep, didn't take too many for his career, and a 78.3% free throw shooter. Cowens, a two-time champion in 74-76, was the 1973 league MVP, an 8-time All-Star, a 1-time All-Star game MVP, 3 All-NBA second teams, 1 All-Defensive first team, 2 All-Defensive second teams, and was the Rookie of the Year and selected to the All-Rookie first team in his freshman class. Next up, we have an old school guy right here, Dave DeBusschere, and he's probably the most underrated defensive forward in league history. 16.1 points, 11 rebounds per game, and 2.9 assists per game, to go with 0.9 steals and 0.5 blocks. Defensive stats weren't really counted until the very latter end of his career. A 43.2% field goal shooter and a 69.9% free throw percent shooter. DeBusschere was a two-time champion with the famed Knicks of the early 70s, an 8-time All-Star, 8 all-defensive first-team selections. We're talking about the elite of the elite when it comes to defense here for Dave DeBusschere, a one-time All-NBA second-team member, and was an All-Rookie first-team member of his freshman class. Next on the list, we have the Admiral himself, David Robinson, and Robinson is arguably the third best player of the 1990s, and essentially compiled most of his career resume that I'm about to read off in 7 years prior to injury in 96-7 for his career. David Robinson, 21.1 points, 10.6 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.4 steals, and 3 blocks per game. I didn't fudge the numbers, they're just facts. It's crazy how good David Robinson was. 2.4 turnovers for a career, shot 51.8% from the field, 25% from deep, 73.6% from the stripe. Robinson, the only player other than Michael Jordan to win an MVP, a defensive player, and an MVP, a Defensive Player of the Year award, and a scoring title in his career. Just for some reference, Robinson did that in his career. Jordan did that in a single season. Robinson's a two-time champ with the Spurs in 99 and 03. The 1995 league MVP, was a 10-time All-Star, selected to 4 All-NBA first teams, 2 All-NBA second teams, and 4 All-NBA third teams. A one-time Defensive Player of the Year in 1992, 4 All-Defensive first teams, and 4 All-Defensive second teams. David Robinson, a hell of an athlete. You'd have to say if LeBron James was 7 foot, you're probably looking at David Robinson. Next on my list, the great DJ, Dennis Johnson, probably the most forgotten about point guard of his generation, and the man Larry Bird said was his greatest teammate. DJ for his career, 14.1 points, 3.9 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.3 steals, and 0.5 blocks on 2.4 turnovers. 44.5% from the field, 17.2% from deep, and 79.7% from the free throw line. Dennis Johnson, a two-time champ with the Celtics and a one-time champ with the Seattle Supersonics in 1979, where he won the Finals MVP. DJ was also a 5-time All-Star, a one-time All-NBA first-team member, and I believe that was with his brief stint in Phoenix. A one-time All-NBA second-team member, I also believe that was with Seattle. 6 All-Defensive first-team selections and 3 All-Defensive second-team selections. DJ, one of the great defensive point guards, one of the 5 best defensive point guards for my liking in league history. Next up, we have the Worm, Dennis Rodman, and for me, he's the only man to truly ever be able to guard 1 to 5 in a one-on-one situation in NBA history. Dennis Rodman, 7.3 points per game, 13.1 rebounds per game, 1.8 assists per game, 0.7 steals and 0.6 blocks per game, a 1.6 turnover average to go with all of that. Rodman, efficient. While he wasn't a great scorer, he was efficient at 52.1% from the field, 23.1 from deep, but a pedestrian 58.4 from the stripe. Rodman, a 5-time champion, obviously famed back-to-back championships with the Bad Boy Pistons and a three-peat with the late 90s Bulls. Rodman was a 2-time All-Star, 2 All-NBA third-team selections, the back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year winner in 1990 and 1991, a 7-time All-Defensive first-team member, a 1-time All-Defensive second-team member, and led the league in rebounding 7 times. Rodman has a case as arguably the greatest rebounder in NBA history. Next on the list, we have Dikembe Mutombo, and he's the leader of probably the most forgotten about playoff comeback in league history. In 1994, in a 5-game first-round series, 2 games to 0 down against the number 1 seed, the league-leading record Seattle Supersonics in 1993-94. Mutombo, with over 30 blocks in a 5-game series, led a monster rally for Denver to upset the first seed Seattle Supersonics. But Mutombo, a hell of a career himself. 9.8 points, 10.3 rebounds and an assist, 0.4 blocks, steals per game, I should say, 2.8 blocks per game on only 1.8 turnovers. Shot 51.8% from the field despite not being a known scorer. Didn't make a 3 for his career, also didn't take many either, and shot 68.4% from the free throw line. Dikembe Mutombo was an 8-time All-Star, a 1-time All-NBA second-team member, a 2-time All-NBA third-team member. But you've got to remember, Dikembe Mutombo was competing for those spots with Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robertson, Shaquille O'Neal, and Alonzo Mourning, guys who clearly had better offensive games. Again, as I mentioned there, 3 All-Defensive first teams, 3 All-Defensive second teams, a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner. Won the award in 1990. Which year was Dikembe's first? Was it 19? I'm trying to remember. He won 97. He won 98. I believe he won 1995. Dikembe won 95, 97, 98, and the 01 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Was a member of that 01 Philadelphia 76ers team, was a member of the All-Rookie first team, led the league in rebounding twice and led the league in blocks 3 times. Dikembe Mutombo, one of the great interior defensive presences of league history. Next on the list, the dunking Deutschman himself, the great Dirk Nowitzki. And for me, right now, he is the greatest European player of all time. But I do say right now, I do believe in about 3 years' time we will be changing that. Potentially at the end of this season, we very well could be changing that. Dirk Nowitzki, for his career, 20.7 points per game, one of the 6th men in league history, I do believe, to have 30,000 career points. 7.5 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists, 0.8 steals and 0.8 blocks on only 1.6 turnovers. Dirk reasonably efficient with his possession as well. 38% from deep, a good stretch forward, 87.9% from the free throw stripe. He's probably going to be challenged by the end of the year, by the end of the decade, as the greatest shooting big man of all time. There is a guy in Minnesota that is genuinely, I think, now starting to compete with Dirk on that one. But for now, I think Dirk may hold that as well. But career 47, 38, 88, rounded 47, 38, 88 splits. Very, very helpful for a stretch four, and arguably the greatest stretch four in league history. Dirk, a 1-time champion finals MVP after that run in 2011 versus the Miami Heat. A 1-time MVP when he led Dallas to 67 wins in 2007. Unfortunately, received that award after being bumped out in the first round by the We Believe Warriors. Dirk, a 14-time All-Star, 4 All-NBA first teams, 5 All-NBA second teams, 3 All-NBA third teams. Played in a golden era of power forwards, the Tim Duncans, the Kevin Garnetts, the Chris Webbers of the world, all competing for those spots, and Dirk very well held his own. Next on my list, the great Dolph Schayes, and for me, Dolph Schayes would have to be the greatest before shot clock, transitioning from the pre-shot clock to the post-shot clock era of league history. I believe he may be just the greatest player of that period there. Dolph Schayes, 18.5 points, 12.1 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 38% from the field. Again, you've got to look relative to time, but a great free throw shooter as a big, regardless of any era, at 84.9% from the strike. Dolph Schayes, a one-time champ, a 12-time All-Star, made 6 All-NBA first teams and 6 All-NBA second teams, a 12-time All-NBA member. And again, you've got to remember the era he played in, the Bob Pettits, the Bill Russells, the Wilt Chamberlains, and a one-time league leading rebounder. Dolph Schayes, again, the greatest before and after shot clock era player the game has seen. Next up, we have the human highlight film, Dominic Wilkins' human highlight film, and for me, is the greatest what if they had the internet in the 1980s guy, because you think Zach LaVine and Anthony Edwards today throwing down big dunks and Ja Morant's big. Dominic Wilkins would relish the idea of Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all these guys, all those outlets. Dominic Wilkins would live on them as far as his highlights are concerned. 24.8 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.6 blocks, and 2.5 turnovers a game for his career. Shot 46.1% from the field, 31.9% from deep, and 81.1% from the free throw line. A 9-time All-Star, a 1-time All-NBA first team member, was runner-up to Larry Bird in the 1986 MVP race in which he won the scoring title. Also a member of 4 All-NBA second teams, 2 All-NBA third teams, and was a member of his Rookie of the Year first team. Dominic Wilkins played in an era of Larry Bird, of Bernard King, so you can see why there's such a mix and match for his All-NBA team selections. You've got to remember he then, transitioned into that early 90s period as well. Next on my list, and a guy who should have made, in my opinion, the NBA 75 list, Dwight Howard. And for me, he's probably the best example of a long career hurting a player's prime. It's been at least a decade since Dwight Howard was in his prime, and there are plenty of people who haven't seen him and plenty of people who have forgotten about just how good of a player Dwight Howard at his peak was. His stats are starting to get smacked a little bit and hurt because of this, but Dwight for a career, 15.8 points, 11.8 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 0.9 steals, 1.8 blocks on 2.7% or 2.7 turnovers. Dwight, though, efficient from the field at 58.7% from the field for a career, right up there in career field goal percentage, 20.6% from deep, but again, a pedestrian free throw shooter at 56.6%. Dwight Howard, a one-time NBA champ with the 2020 Lakers, an 8-time All-Star, made 5 All-NBA first teams, 1 All-NBA second team, and 2 All-NBA third teams, 3 straight DPOY awards from 2009 to 2011, made 4 All-NBA first team selections, 4 all-defensive first team selections, 1 all-defensive second team selection, was on the all-rookie first team for his freshman class, has led the league in rebounding 5 times, and is a 2-time blocks leader. Again, Dwight Howard, a prime example of how a long career can certainly hurt one's prime. Moving on next, we have Dwayne Wade, and for me, Dwayne Wade, the greatest Miami Heat player of all time. Career averages of 22 points per game, 4.7 rebounds per game, 5.4 assists per game, 1.5 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game on 3.2 turnovers per game. Wade for a career shot 48% from the field, 29% from deep, and ultimately in his age, not being able to develop that consistent jumper, probably hurt a little bit, was a far better jumper at the peak of his career than he was at the start, and vice versa, but certainly not to the level where the jump shot really exploded as a valuable asset in the game. Shot 76.5% from the free throw line for a career. Dwayne Wade was a 3-time champ, a 1-time finals MVP, a 13-time All-Star, a 1-time All-Star game MVP, made 2 All-NBA first teams, 3 All-NBA second teams, and 3 All-NBA third teams. A guy who honestly fell victim to your Kobe Bryants, James Hardens, and alike, who really started dominating that position as they came through the league. A 3-time all-defensive second team member, a 1-time scoring champ, and an all-rookie first team member. Kobe Bryant, a big reason why Dwayne Wade's career isn't as decorated as it very well could be. For me, should probably have an all-NBA defensive first team selection on that, and potentially an MVP in 08-09. But for me, Dwayne Wade, the greatest Miami Heat player of all time. Moving on down the list, we have Elgin Baylor, and while he might not be the greatest Laker of all time, he certainly is the most important Laker of all time. Career averages 27.4 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 4.3 assists. Relative field goal percentage, but 43.1% from the field for a career, and 78% from the stripe. Elgin Baylor was an 11-time All-Star, a one-time All-Star Game MVP, made 10 All-NBA first-team selections, and was the Rookie of the Year in 1958-59. Moving on, we have another of the great stretch power forwards in the Big E, Elvin Hayes, and he's arguably the most forgotten about elite scoring talent in NBA history. One of the 10, or at one point was in the top 10 for career points, over 27,000 points for Elvin Hayes. 21 points per game, 12.5 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 1 steal and 2 blocks a game on 2.4 turnovers for the Big E. Shot 45.2% from the field, 14.7% from deep, and 67% from the free throw stripe. Elvin Hayes, a one-time champ, a 12-time All-Star, made 3 All-NBA first-team selections, 3 All-NBA second-team selections, and 2 All-Defensive second-team selections. He was a member of the All-Rookie first team for his freshman class, a one-time scoring leader, and a 2-time rebounding champion. Next on the list, we have, for me, the greatest defensive point guard in NBA history. Ladies and gentlemen, the glove, Gary Payton. Career averages of 16.3 points, 3.9 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 1.8 steals, and 0.2 blocks per game on 2.3 turnovers. GP at his peak, a 20-point per game, 8-assist guy. Lock you down on the other end, a great two-way player. 46.6% from the field, 31.7% from deep, and 72.9% from the stripe. GP winning a championship with the 06 Miami Heat. He was a 9-time All-Star, a 2-time All-NBA first-team member, a 5-time All-NBA second-team member, and a 2-time All-NBA third-team member. This is a guy that was competing with Isaiah Thomas, John Stockton, and Penny Hardaway at the point guard position. GP, the 1996 DPOY winner, the last guard to win the Defensive Player of the Year award, and I believe the only point guard to ever win the Defensive Player of the Year award. He made 9 all-first teams defensive selections, was a one-time steals leader, and a member of the all-rookie second team for his freshman class. Next on down the list, we have the Iceman, George Gervin, and for me he's the greatest scoring guard in Spurs history, and probably the most forgotten about elite-level scoring champion of all time. He's one of 5 guys with 4 scoring titles, and you don't hear a word about him when that conversation comes up. 26.2, this is for his NBA career again. Another guy who transitioned out of the NBA and made a sensational transfer at that. 26.2 points, 4.6 rebounds, 2.8 assists, or 1.2 steals and 0.8 blocks per game on 3 turnovers. The Iceman shot 51.1% from the field, 29.7% from deep, and 84.4% from the stripe. A 9-time All-Star, a 1-time All-Star Game MVP, a 5-time All-NBA first-team member, a 2-time All-NBA second-team member, and again, a 4-time scoring champion. One of the forgotten-about, truly elite offensive perimeter players that this league has ever seen. Next on the list, the biggest foundational blueprint in the history of pro basketball, the big man himself, George Mikan. George Mikan, career average of 23.1 points, 13.4 rebounds, 2.8 assists. Again, field goal relative to his time, 40.4 field goal percentage, 78.2 free throw percentage. Mikan, a 5-time NBA champ, a 4-time All-Star. In the first 4 years, he was able to be selected to that game, a 1-time All-Star Game MVP. Every year of his career that he made an All-NBA team, it was the All-NBA first team, a 3-time scoring champ, and a 1-time rebounding champ. Again, the biggest foundational blueprint in the history of pro basketball. Next up, we have one of the most unique contemporary players and modern players of the game. We have Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he is likely at this stage, I'm not putting a ceiling on it, but he is likely to retire the greatest European basketball player of all time, and he's very, very close to that mantle right now. Career averages 21.6 points, 9.3 rebounds, 4.6 assists, 1.2 steals, and 1.3 blocks. He's averaging 2.9 turnovers. He's shooting 53.3 from the field, 29% from deep, and has bumped that free throw percentage up to 71.8%. Giannis, a 1-time champ, a 1-time finals MVP, a 2-time league MVP, a 6-time All-Star, a 1-time All-Star Game MVP, 3 All-NBA first teams, 2 All-NBA second teams, the winner of the 2020 Defensive Player of the Year award, 3 All-Defensive First Team, 1 All-Defensive Second Team, a winner of the Most Improved Award, and named to the All-Rookie Second Team. Giannis has already got a Hall of Fame level resume. If he retired now, I still think he retires potentially in the top 30 of the greatest players to ever play in this league, as he's just had such a peak run. It's very hard to exclude him, considering that at his peak he's playing better than a lot of players ever played the game. Next up, we have the most skilled two-way big man of all time, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon. 21.8 points, 11.1 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.7 steals, and 3.1 blocks per game. My goodness, on 3 turnovers as well. 51.2% from the field, 20.2% from deep, and 71.2% from the free throw line. Hakeem Olajuwon, a 2-time NBA champ, a back-to-back NBA champ, the only man to lead back-to-back NBA championship teams without another All-Star. Also the lowest seed to ever win a championship, 6th seed in 94-95. 2-time finals MVP, as you can assume. The 94 MVP, the only man to win the MVP, the DPOY, and the finals MVP in the same season. A 12-time All-Star, a 6-time All-NBA First Team, 3 All-NBA Second Teams, 3 All-NBA Third Teams, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner in 93-4, made 5 All-Defensive First Teams, 4 All-NBA Second Teams, a member of the All-Rookie First Team, a 2-time rebounding champ, a 3-time blocks leader, and the man taken number 1 ahead of Michael Jordan in the 1984 NBA draft. If you've got a question how good Hakeem is, read that resume, read those numbers, and again, there is no argument made that Houston made a bad pick in 1984 by selecting Olajuwon over Jordan. That to me speaks volumes, and greater volumes than almost any compliment you can give the great man. Next on the list is Hal Greer, and he's honestly one of the most, if not the most perennial All-NBA second team player of all time, as he played in an era with Jerry West and Oscar Robertson. Good luck trying to get on the All-NBA first team guard list when you're playing with Oscar Robertson and Jerry West, who at the time certainly retired, and it took some 30 years later, 25, 30 years later, for them to be passed at their position as the best, respectively, at the point guard and shooting guard position. But Hal Greer, 19.2 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists per game, shot 45% from the field, which even relative to its time was still passable, certainly better than what a lot of perimeter players are shooting now. 80.1% from the free throw line. Hal Greer, the leading scorer of the 1967 Philadelphia 76ers championship team, who then set at the time a league record and still remain one of the greatest single-season teams in NBA history, a 10-time All-Star and 7 All-NBA second teams. If you're trying to tell me that the era wasn't stacked, try tell me how a guy consistently had to make the second team. That's a guy who could flat out ball. Again, wrong place, wrong time. Next up, we have Zeke, Isaiah Thomas, and for me, he's arguably the most skilled point guard in NBA history. Isaiah Thomas, 19.2 points, 3.6 rebounds, 9.3 assists, 1.9 steals, and 0.3 blocks per game on 3.8 turnovers. A high usage rate, but a hell of a pace to be running the game around with, that, as well as being only around that 6-foot mark. Isaiah Thomas, again, 45.2% from the field, 29% from deep, 79% from the free throw line. 2-time champ and a 1-time finals MVP, the 1990 finals MVP, a 12-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star game MVP, 3 All-NBA first teams, 2 All-NBA second teams, a member of the All-Rookie first team, and a 1-time assist leader. But we're talking about a point guard who played with Magic Johnson and John Stockton. No wonder he was struggling at times to make All-NBA teams. But Isaiah Thomas, again, probably the most skilled point guard in league history. Next, we have the beard, and I was very reluctant to have this man on my list, but we have the beard, James Harden, and honestly, the big thing that gets him over the line is bulk of numbers and stack of resume individually on this one as well. 25 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 1.5 steals, and 0.6 blocks per game on 3.8 turnovers for the beard. Career shooting 44.3%. Now, again, if you're going to tell me a guy is inefficient and then watch James Harden play and expect that he's efficient, then again, I'm going to be asking some real questions of that one there as well. 36.2% from the field, along with 85.9 from the stripe, and I really feel that James Harden should be a 50, 40, 90 guy with the amount of possession he has. But again, I think the best way to describe James Harden is that he's the most prolific user of rules to advantage in league history. I know a lot of guys' career have benefited from the rules, but I don't think anyone has had a more beneficial run as a member of the NBA, of an NBA roster, by taking more, by being a more prolific user of the rules. James Harden, a one-time MVP, a 10-time All-Star, 6 All-NBA first-team selections, 1 All-NBA third team, a 6th Man of the Year, a 3-time scoring champ, an assist leader, and an All-Rookie second team. So hell of a resume, but again, you've got to look at how the resume has come about. Next up, I have Jason Kidd, and for me, he's one of the best championship contending point guards of all time. No matter what team he was on, Jason Kidd, he made that team look like they could genuinely make a deep run. Jason Kidd, 12.6 points, 6.3 rebounds, 8.7 assists, 1.9 steals, 0.3 blocks per game on 2.9 turnovers. Pretty good for a high percentage user of the ball. 40% from deep, certainly not something that we want to praise or scoff at, but it was a different time. He played a different role as well. 34.9 from deep and 78.5% from the stripe. Jason Kidd getting that championship in 2011 with the Dallas Mavericks. A 10-time All-Star, 5 All-NBA first teams, 1 All-NBA second team, 4 all-defensive first teams, and 5 all-defensive second teams. Again, you're dealing and competing with the likes of a Chris Paul for this one. You're competing with a Steve Nash as well. You know, there was some deep positioning there at the point guard position during Jason Kidd's run as well. He was a winner of the Rookie of the Year with Grant Hill in 1995, also a member of the All-Rookie first team, and led the league in assists 5 times. Moving on, we have Jerry Lucas, and again, Jerry Lucas, the only man to ever out-rebound Wilt Chamberlain in a playoff series. 1964 or 1965, he out-rebounded Wilt Chamberlain as a member of the Cincinnati Royals. Jerry Lucas, for a career 17 points per game, 15.6 rebounds, massive rebounding numbers, 3.3 assists per game, 0.4 steals and 0.3 blocks per game, 49% from the field, or 49.9% from the field, and 78% from the free throw line. Jerry Lucas, a one-time NBA champ, 7-time All-Star, a one-time All-Star Game MVP, made 3 All-NBA first teams, 2 All-NBA second teams, was a member of the Rookie of the Year, and a member of his Rookie of the Year first team class. Next up, we have the logo, Mr. Clutch, Jerry West. And for me, he was the first elite two-way guard in NBA history. Truly elite two-way guard in NBA history. West for a career, 27 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 2.6 steals, and 0.7 blocks. Shot 47.4% from the field and 81.4% from the free throw stripe. Jerry West, a one-time champion on the famed Lakers of 1971-72. A one-time Finals MVP, the inaugural Finals MVP winner, and the only winner of a Finals MVP in a losing side. 4-time All-Star, one-time All-Star Game MVP, made 10 All-NBA first teams, 2 All-NBA second teams, 4 All-Defensive first teams, 1 All-Defensive second team, a one-time scoring champ, and a one-time assist leader. It is key to note that those defensive stats with Jerry West are only a 31-game sample size, as defensive stats were recorded in his last season, so one has to assume how mind-boggling Jerry West's defensive numbers would have been for even a guard if in his final season, when he gave the game away, he was averaging 2.6 steals. Just some food for thought. Next on my list, one that many people probably wouldn't have, Joe Dumars. And for me, Dumars is the biggest brand overshadows the player guy in league history. How many nice guy stories do you hear from Joe Dumars from players of the 80s and the 90s? Hell of a lot. But who did he play for? He played for the bad boy Pistons. It's fair to say that in the minds of many, that brand overshadows exactly who Joe Dumars was. For a career, Dumars was a 16.1 point per game player, 2.2 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 0.9 steals, and 0.1 blocks on 2 turnovers. Shot 46% from the field, a pretty impressive 38.2% from deep, and 84.3% from the free throw stripe. Joe Dumars could shoot the rock. A 2-time champ, the 1989 Finals MVP, a 6-time All-Star, 1 All-NBA second team selection, another guy who competed in that era with the likes of a Michael Jordan, with the likes of a Clyde Drexler, with the likes of a Penny Hardaway, with the likes of a Mitch Richmond. Joe Dumars was amongst that crop of players. Again, 1 All-NBA second team, 1 All-NBA third team, made 4 All-Defensive first teams, 1 All-Defensive second team, and was a member of his freshman's rookie class, a All-Rookie first team member there. Up next, we have Hondo John Havlicek. For me, the greatest two-way player to play for the Boston Celtics. Yes, I even think he was a better all-around player than Larry Bird. Do I think he was a better player than Bird? It's a whole other topic of discussion. It's safe to say that I do not. However, and I certainly don't think he was a better defensive player than Bill Russell. I don't think he was a better offensive player than Larry Bird. But when you encompass those factors of the game on both ends, I feel he was the most rounded and the greatest two-way player to play for the Boston Celtics. 20.8 points, 6.3 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 1.2 steals, and 0.3 blocks for a career with 2.5 turnovers a game. Havlicek shot just shy of 44% at 43.9 from the field. Again, you need to look at field goal relative to time. And again, 81.5% from the free throw line. Havlicek, an 8-time champ, 6 under Bill Russell and 2 next to the likes of Dave Cowens and JoJo White in 1974 and 1976. He was a 1-time finals MVP, a 13-time All-Star, 4 All-NBA first teams, again competed with Elgin Baylor and Rick Barry for most of his career for that one, as well as 7 All-NBA second teams, just to give you an idea. 5 All-Defensive first teams, 3 All-Defensive second teams. One of the great, if not at a time, the greatest defensive small forward of all time, and a member of his All-Rookie class on the first team. Up next, we have John Stockton, and for me, John Stockton is the greatest pure point guard in NBA history. Pure point guard. Run the offense, score a little, play some defense, and get the ball in the hands of those who do it best. I think John Stockton is the greatest pure point guard of all time. 13 point for a career, averaged 13.1 points, 2.7 rebounds, 10.5 assists, 2.2 steals, and 0.2 blocks, with a turnover ratio of 2.8 a game. So an assist to turnover ratio of 10.5 to 2.8, right up there amongst the all-time league leaders. There, I mean, as we know, he's the all-time leader in assists and the all-time leader in steals. And I don't think you'll see any of those records broken anytime soon. They're Wilt Chamberlain-esque kind of records as far as assists and as far as steals. 51.5% career shooting, 38.4% from deep, and 82.6% from the stripe. John Stockton could put the ball in the hoop when he wanted to at an efficient clip. A 10-time All-Star, a 1-time All-Star Game MVP, again competing with the likes of Isaiah Thomas and Penny Hardaway for those All-NBA first-team selections. He only had 2 for a career, had 6 All-NBA second teams and 3 All-NBA third teams. The guards and the point guards were deep in John Stockton's era, and he still put up those numbers efficiently and set all-time records that will likely never be broken. A 5-time All-Defensive second-team member, a record-breaking 9 times the league leader in assists and a 2-time steals leader. John Stockton, again, the greatest pure point guard in NBA history. Next up, we have the Doctor. Dr. J, that is, Julius Erving. And for me, the best way to describe Dr. J is to describe him as the saviour of pro basketball. When the league was at its absolute bottom-feeding self in the 70s, when the transition from the ABA came over, with all the rifleness of a high social life in the NBA in the 70s and the early 80s, before Larry and Magic really took this thing over, Dr. J was the saviour of pro basketball. For an NBA career, and I'm talking NBA, not just ABA, I'm talking NBA only, 22 points, 6.7 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 1.8 steals and 1.5 blocks on 3.1 turnovers. Dr. J on the Mount Rushmore of small forwards in league history. 50.7% from the field, 26.1% from deep, and 77.7% from the stripe. Dr. J, a 1-time champ in 1983, the 1981 league MVP, an 11-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star Game MVP, 5 All-NBA first-team selections, and 2 All-NBA second-team selections. An elite-level player. It wasn't just the name and the brand for Dr. J. It was all about the game as well. A guy who truly was flash and substance. Was flash and style, but had a hell of a lot of substance to his game as well. Next up, we've mentioned him before, and he's here again, the captain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He is the only man in league history to win 6 MVP awards. I tell you what, that's a hell of a claim to make. There's only one guy, I believe, there's only one guy of the 4 major North American sports with more league MVPs, and that's Wayne Gretzky with 9 Hart trophies. I believe Barry Bonds has several separate league MVP awards, but I believe he has 7. But considering that they don't have an MLB league-wide MVP trophy, you would have to suggest that Gretzky's the only person with more. Guys like Messi and Ronaldo have as many Player of the Year awards for FIFA, but again, that's on a global club stage. Tells you what sort of elite company Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's in as far as MVP awards. Career averages: 24.6 points, 11.2 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 0.9 steals, and 2.6 blocks a game on 2.7 turnovers. Shot 55.9 from the field with the most unstoppable offensive manoeuvre in league history, the sky hook. 5.6% from deep. Didn't take many though, and Kareem reliable from the stripe at 72%. This is a hell of a resume too. Again, a 6-time champ, a 2-time finals MVP. Actually holds the record for oldest finals MVP and time between first and last finals MVP. I believe it was a span of 14 seasons there. Again, the 6 league MVPs. Was a 19-time All-Star. Would have been an All-Star in every year except he got suspended and had a broken hand for walloping a guy in, I do believe it might have been 1976. A 10-time All-NBA first-team member, a 5-time All-NBA second-team member. Again, you've got to look who he's competing against. Bill Walton, Elvin Hayes, Moses Malone, Hakeem Olajuwon, some elite-level Dave Cowan, some elite-level talent in centre position during his career. All-time elite-level talent in the centre position. A guy called Wilt Chamberlain was still kicking around at 1.2, so was Nate Thurmond. 5-time All-Defensive first-team member and a 6-time All-Defensive second-team member, a Rookie of the Year and a member of the All-Rookie first team for his freshman class, a 2-time scoring champ, a 1-time scoring leader, the current all-time leader in career points, and a 4-time blocks leader. You call Kareem the greatest player of all time, you're not going to get much of an argument out of me. And if you include high school and college, it's a wrap. It's asking who's second when that list is included. Next up, I have the mailman from the Utah Jazz, Karl Malone, and for me, he is the healthiest superstar of all time, and it's not even close. The amount of full seasons this guy played, essentially the only full season or healthy season he didn't have, or was his last, and that was playing for the Lakers. Karl, 25 points, 10 rebounds for a career to go with 3.6 assists, 1.4 steals, 0.8 blocks on 3.1 turnovers. Played more games in tandem with John Stockton than any other duo in league history, and I believe only a dozen or 15 players have played more career games total than those guys did as a duo. That's how much they played together. So it's very hard to separate how great one would have been without the other. It's honestly why I don't do it. 51.6% from the field, 27.3% from deep, 74.2% from stripe. Unfortunately for Karl, though, as a mailman, didn't necessarily deliver on Sundays. Karl, a 2-time league MVP, 97 and 99. He was a 14-time All-Star, a 2-time All-Star Game MVP member. He has the most All-NBA first-team selections for a power forward at 11. 2 All-NBA second teams and 1 All-NBA third team, again, competing with, a big reason Charles Barkley missed out on some of these, but, Charles cost him a couple. Tim Duncan cost him a couple eventually. Your Kevin Garnett's, your Chris Webber's also proving vital there. Was a 3-time All-NBA defensive first-team member, 1-time All-Defensive second-team member, and a member of his All-Rookie first team. But again, for me, the healthiest superstar of all time. I don't even think it's close as far as full seasons are concerned. I believe he's second or third all-time in career games played, which backs up that point. Next on the list, we have the Claw, Kawhi Leonard. He's in my top 50, he's certainly in my 75, and for me, he's the biggest reclusive superstar in NBA history. At the moment, Kawhi has career averages of 19.2 points, 6.4 rebounds, 2.9 assists, 1.8 steals, and 0.6 blocks on 1.6 turnovers. 49.3% shooting from the field, 38.4% from deep, and 85.8% from the stripe. Kawhi is an elite-level efficient two-way player. He's just not on the floor very often, and we don't hear from him very often as well. He's already built a bulk of his career resume, and his Hall of Fame resume was pretty much solidified following the 2019 championship and finals MVP with the Raptors. Again, a two-time champ, one with the Spurs, one with the Raptors. Finals MVP in both championship runs, again, Spurs and Raptors. Five-time All-Star, a one-time All-Star Game MVP. Has 3 All-NBA first-team selections, 2 All-NBA second-team selections, a two-time Defensive Player of the Year. He is the only player to have, him and Hakeem Olajuwon, the only players with multiple DPOYs and final MVP awards. That should give you a list, an idea of just how great Kawhi Leonard really is. 3 All-Defensive first teams, 4 All-Defensive second teams, an elite defensive player, a member of his All-Rookie first team, and a one-time steals leader. Kawhi Leonard headed to the Hall of Fame. For me, he's a top 50 player of all time, certainly pushing that top 30 range in my opinion. Speaking of top 30, that is Kevin Durant. He's next on the list, and he, for me, is the best jump shooting big man of all time. Not necessarily shooting. I think that he has a little to be desired at times. But again, for me, the best jump shooting 7-footer of all time. Does it make him the greatest shooting big man of all time? Potentially. I think you can make a hell of a case. I mean, 4 scoring titles are certainly big on that one, on that list there. But for me, he's the best jump shooting 7-footer of all time. There's been, cases to be made for Dirk Nowitzki as well. But I mean, Durant's right up there for certain. 27.1 career points, 7.1 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.1 steals and 1.1 blocks on 3.1 turnovers. Career shooting splits of 49.5 from the field, 38.3 from deep, 88.3 from the free throw line. This is a guy that could genuinely finish career a 27 points on 50, 40, 90 shooting. At that point, it's going to be a hell of a case to be made for someone else to be the second greatest shooting big man of all time. Durant, 2 championships with the Warriors in 17-18, the finals MVP in both of those runs. You've got to remember, though, back in OKC, he was the league MVP of 2013-14. He also won his 4 scoring titles there. He's a 12-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star Game MVP, has 6 All-NBA first-team selections, 3 All-NBA second-team selections, was the Rookie of the Year in 07-08, and a member of the All-Rookie first team as well. Kevin Durant, to me, is on the Mount Rushmore of small forwards in league history, such as the how high I rank Kevin Durant. Moving on, we have Kevin Garnett. For me, he may be the most skilled power forward of all time. 17.8 points, 10 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 1.3 steals and 1.4 blocks. A great two-way player. Again, a guy whose prime was really hurt by how much he tapered off at the end of his career, but one of the elite two-way players of league history, and for me, the most skilled power forward of all time. He also only had a turnover rate of 2.2, which is sensational for a guy of his pedigree. 49.7% from the field shooting, 27.5% from deep, and 78.9% from the stripe. KG, a one-time champion with the Boston Celtics, a one-time MVP in 0-3-4 with the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's still the Minnesota Timberwolves all-time leader in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. He's the only man to lead any franchise in all 5 categories. A 15-time All-Star, a one-time All-Star Game MVP, made 4 All-NBA first teams, 3 All-NBA second teams, and 2 All-NBA third teams again. Chris Webber, Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki, big reasons for that case as well. Good luck competing with that. The 2007-2008 Defensive Player of the Year, so a one-time DPOY winner. I believe he was second or third in MVP voting that year as well. A 9-time All-Defensive First Team member, a 3-time All-Defensive Second Team member, an elite defensive player was Kevin Garnett, and led the league in rebounding 4 times. Always linked together, Kevin Garnett is with this man, Kevin McHale, the man who drafted him to Minnesota. A hell of a relationship between those two gents. For me, the most fundamental low-post player of all time, offensively and defensively, certainly has a case as well, just with the way he used his hands. McHale for a career, 17.9 points, 7.3 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 0.4 steals and 1.7 blocks on 1.9 turnovers. Shot 55.4 from the field, 26.1% from deep, and just under 80% from the line at 79.8. Kevin McHale, a 3-time NBA champ with the Boston Celtics, a 7-time All-Star, 1-time All-NBA first-team member, made 3 All-Defensive first teams, 3 All-Defensive second teams, a 2-time Six-Man of the Year, one of the great 6 men of league history, and a member of his freshman class's All-Rookie first team. Coming up next, for me, the second greatest shooting guard of all time, but certainly the hardest working player of all time, and that is the late, great Kobe Bean Bryant. The Black Mamba, 25 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 1.4 steals, and 0.5 blocks on 3 turnovers for a career. Shot 44.7% from the field, 32.9% from deep, and 83.7% from the stripe. Kobe was lethal, and at his peak, one of the best two-way players in the game. Again, for me, the second greatest shooting guard of all time, the hardest working player of all time. Kobe was rewarded for this hard work and his output as a 5-time champ, 3 times with Shaq, 2 with Pau Gasol, well, certainly as the leader of those Pau Gasol teams, and as a case is certainly the big game player, arguably the biggest Western Conference player of all time. 2-time finals MVP in those back-to-back years with Pau Gasol, a 1-time league MVP in 07-08. You can make a case he probably should have won the award in 02-03 and potentially 05-06 as well. An 18-time All-Star, the second All-Star to ever win 4 All-Star Game MVPs. The award now bears his name, the Kobe Bryant All-Star Game MVP trophy. Made 11 All-NBA first teams, the most by any shooting guard, 2 All-NBA second teams and 2 All-NBA third teams. Again, was competing with James Harden and Dwayne Wade for such nods eventually in his career. Also competing during his career with the likes of a Grant Hill and a T-Mac as they went through their elite periods as well. Made 9 All-NBA first teams and 3 All-Defensive second teams. Him and Kevin Garnett matching their All-Defensive team honours there. A 2-time scoring champ and a member of his All-Rookie second team, the late, great Kobe Bean Bryant. Next, we have the great LJB rather than LBJ. We have Larry Joe Bird. And for me, he has arguably the greatest career of under 1,000 games in league history. Bird for a career, this is astounding. 24.3 points, 10 rebounds per game and 6.3 assists. Nikola Jokic kind of numbers here in the modern game, but you've got to remember he played with Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and averaged 10 rebounds a game for his career. Hell of a rebounding total there. That tells you that Larry wasn't afraid to bang down low. 1.7 steals and 0.8 blocks per game on 3.1 turnovers. Bird was efficient scoring as well. 49.6 from the field, 37.6 from deep, and 88.6% from the stripe. Very comparative to Kevin Durant on that line as well. A 3-time champ, a 2-time finals MVP, the last man to win 3 consecutive MVP awards, 84 through 6. A 12-time All-Star, a 1-time All-Star Game MVP, made 9 All-NBA first teams, 1 All-NBA second team. Again, he's competing with Dominique Wilkins, Bernard, King, all those kind of guys. A 3-time All-NBA second team, defensive second team member. That's something a lot of people wouldn't realise. Larry Bird was a very good help defender. Again, I can't put him ahead of John Havlicek, though, as far as two-way players. I don't think he was as elite defensively, and I think what Havlicek did defensively was far more elite, if you get what I'm saying there. Rookie of the Year for his rookie season, beat some guy called Magic Johnson. He's coming up on the list very shortly. Heard he played okay, and a member of his all-rookie first team. Next up, we have LBJ, we had LJB, and now we have LBJ, LeBron James. And for me, he is the greatest small forward of all time. He is on the Mount Rushmore of the NBA, and he has the longest elite career of all time. You got to remember, LeBron is in year 19, but LeBron's got a lot of minutes and a lot of miles on the legs, a lot of games on the legs. You do have to respect it. 27.1 points, 7.5 rebounds, 7.4 assists, 1.6 steals and 0.8 blocks per game on 3.5 turnovers. 50.5% from the field. His three-point shooting has improved over his career. He's now up to 34.5% from deep. Free throws have always been a criticism, 73.4% there. LeBron, a 4-time champ, a 4-time finals MVP and a 4-time league MVP. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the only man with those kind of numbers for a career. 18-time All-Star at the time of writing. That would be an 18-time All-Star there. 3-time All-Star Game MVP. Let me just double check. I'm pretty sure LeBron might be back up to 19 All-Star games now. Just want to check that. At the time of writing this script, I hadn't included that. No, definitely an 18-time All-Star. My apologies there. three-time All-Star Game MVP, 13 All-NBA first-team selections, the all-time leader in NBA All-NBA selections, I do believe as well. Certainly all first-team, but I believe all-time as well. 3 All-NBA second teams and an All-NBA third team. Guys like Paul Pierce, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant competing, along that line as well. Grant Hill as well to an extent in his career, competing with LeBron for positions on that team. 5 all-defensive first teams. He had a 5-year run, 09 to 13. The likes this league has certainly never seen, and right up there, peak for peak, is the best in league history. A one-time all-defensive second-team member. He was the winner of his Rookie of the Year award, an all-rookie first-team member. I believe he was top 10 in MVP voting that season. A one-time scoring champ, one-time assist leader. The guy's still putting stats up in year 19. And I mean, genuine offensive stats. Defensively, don't worry about, but genuine offensive stats. To me, the longest elite career of all time. Moving on, the man's known as Magic. He's known by his nickname. That's how good he was. Earvin Magic Johnson, the greatest point guard in NBA history. Magic, 19.5 points, 7.2 rebounds, career-leading average of 11.2 assists per game, 1.9 steals, and 0.4 blocks on 3.9 turnovers. At the pace Magic played, very efficient there. 52% from the field, 30.3% from deep, and he did improve that three-point shot as his career went along, as well as his free throw shooting, which finished at a career clip of 84.8%. Magic, a 5-time champ with the Showtime Lakers, a 3-time Finals MVP with the Showtime Lakers, most notable for his 1980 Game 6 heroics. 42 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, I do believe it was, against Dr. J, Darryl Dawkins, and Will Be Free, that Sixers team. Again, a 3-time league MVP, a 12-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star Game MVP, 9 All-NBA first-team selections, 1 All-NBA second-team selection. It was a member of his All-Rookie first team again. Larry Bird beat him for Rookie of the Year honours. 4-time assist leader, 2-time steals leader, the greatest point guard of all time. And you could argue as a pure Laker career, arguably the greatest Laker of all time. Up next, we have Michael Jeffrey Jordan, who to me and for a lot of others, the greatest NBA player of all time. Jordan for a career, 30.1 points per game. That is the all-time record at 30.12. He eclipses Wilt at 30. I don't know if Wilt's 30.07 rounded to 0.1 or if he's 30.10. It's one of those two. 6.2 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists, 2.3 steals per game, and 0.8 blocks per game on 2.7 turnovers. Reasonably efficient with the ball was Mike. Shot 49.7% from the field, 32.7% from deep, and 83.5% for a career. It's very simple. Jordan was elite on both ends consistently at the same time to such a level that no player could match in league history for my liking. A 6-time champ, a 6-time Finals MVP, a 5-time league MVP, 14-time All-Star, 3 All-Star Game MVPs, 10 All-NBA first teams, 1 All-NBA second team. He got that in his rookie season. A 1-time DPOY, the only man to win the scoring title and the Defensive Player of the Year award in the same season. 9 all-defensive first-team selections, with the Rookie of the Year of 84, 5 over Hakeem Olajuwon, made the all-rookie first team that year, and again, 10 scoring titles. No one in league history has come close to sniffing 10 league scoring titles, and a 3-time steals leader as well. I believe he retired the all-time leader in steals, the all-time leader in scoring points per game, the all-time leader in scoring titles. Could make a genuine case that should have been a 10-time all-defensive member and a 10-time scoring leader at the same time. At that point, the door would be shut. It's just ridiculous. You take out the legacy in the postseason of the championships and the finals MVPs, and you're talking about a top 10 player all time as is minimum. It's ridiculous. Jordan, for me, the GOAT, the greatest NBA player of all time. We've got Mr. Fo, the chairman of the boards, Moses Malone, next. And again, he's the most forgotten about superstar in league history for me. Definitely the most forgotten about superstar. I know Bob McAdoo has a case, but again, Moses Malone, for me, the most forgotten about superstar in league history. Career averages of 20.3 points per game, 12.3 rebounds per game, 1.3 assists per game, 0.8 steals per game, and 1.3 blocks per game on 3.1 turnovers, shot 49.5% for his career, 9.6% from deep, didn't shoot too many for his career, as you can imagine, and 76% from the free throw line. Moses, a one-time champ again with the 1983 Philadelphia 76ers, a one-time finals MVP with Philadelphia 76ers, a three-time MVP in 1979, 1982 and 1983. I believe he's the only MVP in league history to be traded and win the MVP the following season. 12-time All-Star, 4 All-NBA first teams, 4 All-NBA second teams. Again, you're competing with Kareem and Hakeem and Patrick Ewing and all these guys at centre back then. A one-time All-Defensive first team member, a one-time All-Defensive second team member, 6-time rebounding leader, the greatest offensive rebounder in league history. And I believe Moses is the only guy to average 20 and 10 on either 4 or 5 separate teams. Moses just banged on the glass and he scored inside. A hard worker, quoted fo in 1983, and they went 12-1. One of the best teams of all time. Speaking of one of the best all time, we have one of the great defensive bigs in league history next in Nate Thurmond, the most underrated defensive big man in my opinion of all time. Career averages of 15 points, 15 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 0.5 steals and 2.1 blocks. Again, defensive stats weren't recorded for his whole career, and I have reason to believe, particularly from the reports of Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, that Nate Thurmond would genuinely be up there as in the all-time shot blocking discussion leaders, in discussion around that. 42.1% from the field, 66.7% from the free throw line. A 7-time All-Star, made 2 All-Defensive first teams and 3 All-Defensive second teams, and made his All-Rookie first team. Next up, we have the inventor of the hook shot, the great Neil Johnston, who can best be described as the bridge between George Mikan and Wilt Chamberlain. Neil Johnston for career averaged 19.4 points, 11.3 rebounds and 2.5 assists. Again, field goal relative and free throw percentage relative as well to position and time frame he played. 44.4 from the field, 76.8 from the stripe. Neil Johnston was a one-time NBA champion with the great Paul Arizin, who will be mentioned in this list a little later. A 6-time All-Star, a member of the All-NBA first team 4 times, a one-time member of the All-NBA second team. He won 3 scoring titles and was a rebounding leader. Next on the list, we have the Big O, and at one point, the greatest point guard in league history, for me, the second greatest point guard in league history, the Big O, Oscar Robertson. And for me, certainly, one aspect that doesn't get spoken about is how great he was in the post. And for me, he's one of the probably the second greatest or third greatest low post guard of all time. Your Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, probably get 1 and 2 there. But Phil Jackson regards Oscar Robertson as one of the finest low post players for a guard he's ever seen. Oscar for a career stuffed the stat sheet. 25.7 points, 7.5 rebounds, 9.5 assists per game. The first man to average a triple-double in a season, and cumulatively over his first 5 years averaged a triple-double. 1.5 steals, 0.1 blocks, shot 48.5% from the field and 83.8% from the stripe. Don't get hung up on how that's efficient all time. You need to get hung up on the fact, go and look at that comparatively to guards and the rest of the league average back then. Again, dodgy hoops, dodgy conditions, lack of fundamentals to learn as they were essentially developing the fundamentals. Open-air gyms, and these guys were shooting the absolute lights out, even compared to their contemporaries and modern players. Oscar Robertson, the point guard on the 1971 Milwaukee Bucks championship team next to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the only player not named Wilt or Russell to win a league MVP between 1960 and 1968, Wes Unseld winning in 1969, and I believe he was the only guard to win an MVP other than Bob Cousy between the years 1956 right through to when Magic Johnson won his first league MVP in 1987. I'm not exaggerating. Oscar Robertson was that good. A 12-time All-Star, a 3-time All-Star Game MVP, 9 All-NBA first teams, 2 All-NBA second teams. The winner of his Rookie of the Year, I believe he beat some guy called Jerry West. I believe we talked about him earlier. And led the league in assists 6 times. Next on the list, Patrick Ewing, the great Georgetown Hoosier. And the only way to describe Pat for me is he's probably the biggest victim of circumstance in league history. Now, many would argue Baylor and Jerry West, and Elgin Baylor has a case. Jerry West got a ring. Elgin Baylor, if he'd have played on that team, would have got a ring. Patrick Ewing, time and circumstance, didn't get a ring. And he can thank Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon for that reason. He can also thank injury as well, which is another big factor in 99 and an underrated year of Ewing's career. Go and look at how impactful he was even at his latter stages and injury-riddled self back then. Paddy Ewing for a career, 21 points per game, 9.8 rebounds per game, 1.9 assists, 1 steal and 2.4 blocks. Pat, an elite two-way player, 3 turnovers a game, shot 50.4% from the field. More of an outside scorer as well. Ewing doesn't reflect in the three-point margin, three-point shooting at 15.2%. But again, you've got to look at how big scored back then, and 74% from the stripe. Ewing, an 11-time All-Star. And if this doesn't tell you why he competed with some tough competition, only 1 All-NBA first team compared to 6 All-NBA second teams, David Robinson, Shaq and Olajuwon. Thank you very much. Alonzo Mourning's probably on that list somewhere too. He's certainly on the list for 3 All-Defensive second teams again, Olajuwon, Robinson, Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, all those guys. He was the Rookie of the Year in 1985, 6 and a member of the All-Rookie first team, and certainly has a claim as one of, if not the greatest Knick of all time. Next on the list, Pitchin' Paul Arizin, one of the only players to ever be an All-Star in every season he played, and had a career that was interrupted by 2 years in the Korean War serving in the Marine Corps, and was an All-Star either side and an elite level forward either side. Career averages 22.8 points per game, 8.6 rebounds per game, 2.3 assists per game, and again, relative to time, great scoring efficiency as well, 42.1% from the field and 81% from the free throw line. Pitchin' Paul, a one-time champion alongside Neil Johnston, one of the great scoring combinations in league history. A 10-time All-Star, a one-time All-Star game MVP, made 3 All-NBA first teams and 1 All-NBA second team, and a 2-time scoring champ. And you have to consider you have him and Neil Johnston on a championship team, one of the most decorated tandems at the time in league history. Next up, we've got the truth. We've got Paul Pierce. And Paul Pierce would likely go down as any franchise's greatest small forward ever had he realistically played anywhere else, but he played for the Celtics. And if he's going to try and compete with Larry Bird and John Havlicek, he's got a lot of work to do. That's 2 of the 25 greatest players of all time right there. Paul Pierce for a career, 19.7 points, 5.6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, a big game player, and honestly one of the most true, probably what I'd say, one of the most true athletes in league history. I mean, Pierce come out after a stabbing incident that could have killed him, played 82 games, was never quite the same athlete ever again, but he's probably the most true to self athlete players of all time as well. 19.7 points, 5.6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.3 steals and 0.6 blocks for a career on 2.6 turnovers. Shot 44.5 from the field and a marksman from outside, 36.8%. He was a three-point shoot contest winner and 80.6% from the stripe. The leader of the Celtics championship in 07-08, the finals MVP of 07-08, a 10-time All-Star, 1 All-NBA second team and 3 All-NBA third teams. Again, you've got Kevin Durant. You've also got LeBron James to try and compete at those positions. We're talking about 2 of the 20 to 25 greatest players of all time you're competing with at your position, and was a member of his All-Rookie first team. Next up, we have Pistol Pete Maravich, and for me, the first true epitome of substance over style in a superstar in league history. Pete Maravich unfortunately died way too young, but had an absolute elite run at college and in the pro level that, some have never seen, particularly out of a perimeter player such as himself. 24.2 points, 4.2 rebounds, 5.4 assists, 1.4 steals, 0.3 blocks on 3.7 turnovers. Shot 44.1% for his career. He made 2/3 of the threes he made. He wasn't a massive marksman and didn't take many, but it is notable to note that he could make the outside shot when he tried and was an 82% free throw shooter. 5-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA first team selection, 2-time All-NBA second team selection, a 1-time scoring champion, and a member of his All-Rookie first team. Next up, we have one of the elite small forwards in league history in Rick Barry, and again, one of the comparative all-time free throw shooters in league history. Rick Barry, the second player ever to be a lone All-Star on a championship team. He was also the first person, I do believe, to ever average 30 points and 2 steals a game in a single season. Rick Barry in his NBA career, this is a guy who won a scoring title and went to the ABA, and that scoring title was won in 1967. Same year that Wilt Chamberlain had arguably his most rounded season ever. 23.2 career points, career point per game, I should say. 6.5 rebounds, 5.1 assists, 2 steals and 0.5 blocks on 2.5 turnovers. High usage rate, but reasonably efficient with the basketball. 44.9% from the field, made a third of his three-pointers and made 9 of every 10 free throws. This is a guy who could flat out shoot the basketball and was an underhanded free throw shooter. Again, a one-time champ, a one-time finals MVP with the 1975 Golden State Warriors, an 8-time All-Star, a one-time All-Star Game MVP, made 5 All-NBA first teams and 1 All-NBA second team, was the Rookie of the Year and an All-Rookie first team selection, a one-time scoring champ and a one-time steals champ. Russell Westbrook next on the list, and for me is the greatest stat-chasing guard of all time, and it's not even close. The all-time leader in triple-doubles. This man's happy if he's got double figures in points, rebounds and assists, and he doesn't care how efficient he does it. Likely to become the all-time leader in turnovers by the time his career done. He's chasing LeBron at a great pace, and LeBron's got a reasonable lead. And Westbrook, at the time of recording, 1,000 career games. So in 1,000 career games, Westbrook, 22.9 points, 7.4 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 1.7 steals and 0.3 blocks on 4.1 turnovers. For any superstar, he's the all-time leader in turnovers per game. 43.7% from the field, 30.5% from deep, and 78.5% from the free throw line. His efficiency numbers scoring have dipped as his career's continued. He was the league MVP of 2016-17. He averaged a triple-double for 3 straight years, and I believe has averaged it 4 of the last 5. 9-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star Game MVP, 2 All-NBA first teams, 5 All-NBA second teams. Again, you're competing with Chris Paul, James Harden, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard at that position there. 2-time All-NBA third team. So Kyrie Irving as well, a fair bit of depth running around in that position. John Wall at one point was a competitor at that spot as well. The only person to win multiple scoring and assist titles in league history. He's got 2 scoring titles and 3 assist titles and was an all-rookie first-team selection. Next on the list, we have Mr. Clutch, one of the other Mr. Clutches of league history, the great Sam Jones, the most clutch shooter on the greatest dynasty in the history of sports in North America. Pretty much sums up how great this guy was. 17.7 points, 4.9 rebounds, 2.5 assists, shooting 45.6 from the field and 80.3% from the stripe. Sam Jones, one of 2 men in league history with 10 championship rings, the other being the great William Felton Russell. 5-time All-Star and 3 All-NBA second-team selections. Again, good luck getting in the guard position along with himself and Hal Greer, with the likes of Oscar Robertson and Jerry West running roughshod over the league for a decade. Also competing with Bob Cousy in his early years. Good luck. Next up, we have no Tippin' Pippin, Scottie Pippen. And to be fair to Scottie, though, has a case as the greatest defensive small forward of all time. I believe he is the greatest defensive small forward of all time and arguably the greatest defensive perimeter player of all time. One of the greatest defenders to never win a Defensive Player of the Year award. Scottie's career averages 16.1 points, 6.4 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 2 steals and 0.8 blocks per game on 2.8 turnovers. The point forward of those championship Bulls. 47.3% from the field for Scottie, 32.6% from deep and 70.4 free throw percentage points. Again, very interesting to see that these guys, that Scottie's regarded as a more all-rounded player. Compare the pair, stat line for Jordan, highlight points per game, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, turnovers, efficiency, you name it, and tell me where Scottie has the better stats. Anyway, Scottie, a great player in his own right, a 6-time champ, a 7-time All-Star, a 1-time All-Star Game MVP, 3 All-NBA first teams, 2 All-NBA second teams, 2 All-NBA third teams, 8 All-Defensive first team selections, 2 All-Defensive second team selections, and 1 steals leader. Again, I do feel Scottie Pippen is the greatest defensive small forward of all time. Next on the list, the Diesel, Shaquille O'Neal. The best way to summarise Shaq, that at his peak was the most dominant offensive centre in NBA Finals history. Not the greatest centre in NBA Finals history, but the most dominant offensive centre in NBA Finals history. Shaq, for a career, averaged 23.7 points, 10.9 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 0.6 steals, and 2.3 blocks on 2.7 turnovers. Shot a mammoth 58.2% from the field. I believe it was 1 of 22 for a career or something ridiculous along those lines, or 1 of 20 for a career along those lines. 1 of 22 sounds right, actually, for 3-point attempts in his career, and was a pedestrian 52.7% from the stripe. A 4-time champ, 3-time finals MVP and a league MVP.
15-time All-Star, 3-time All-Star Game MVP, an 8-time All-First-Team selection, 2 All-NBA second-team selections, 4 All-NBA third-team selections. Again, a lot of these seconds and thirds coming at the expense of, coming thanks to Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, and David Robinson, Alonzo Mourning, and even to an extent, potentially Yao Ming and Dwight Howard. 3 All-Defensive second teams, a runner-up Defensive Player of the Year in the year 2000, was the Rookie of the Year and made the All-Rookie first team of his freshman class, and a 2-time scoring champ. I believe he is the last player to win the scoring title and lead his team to a championship. A fair feather in the cap for Shaq. Next on my list, again, a prime example of defense taking precedence, but one of the better two-way runs in the league, certainly for at least a 5-year period. For me, Sidney Moncrief, the shooting guard from Milwaukee. Again, he's probably the most forgotten about two-way guard of all time. Was peaking at 25-5 and probably the best defensive perimeter player in the league during his time. Moncrief averaged 15.6 points, 4.7 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 1.2 steals, and 0.3 blocks on 2 turnovers a game. Shot 50.2% from the field, 28.3% from deep in a time where the shot just wasn't taken, and 83.1% from the free throw line. Moncrief was a 5-time All-Star, a 1-time All-NBA first-team member, a 2-time All-NBA second-team member. Some guy called Jordan came onto the scene, caused a bit of a rift there. 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, the inaugural winner of the DPOY, and won back-to-back there. The only guard to win multiple DPOY awards, and I believe he was the only person until the likes of Kawhi Leonard won 2 that he was a multi-time perimeter DPOY winner. 4 All-NBA first teams, all defensive first teams I should say, and 1 all defensive second teams. Next up, we have the chef, the greatest shooter in NBA history, Steph Curry. Curry, 24.3 points, 4.6 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 1.7 steals, and 0.2 blocks on 3.1 turnovers a game. Shoots 47.3% from the field and 42.8% from deep for a career, 90.8% from the free throw line. Those numbers slightly charred due to his most inefficient scoring season of his career so far this year. A 3-time champ, probably should have at least a finals MVP under the belt. 2015 for me, he was the finals MVP. 2-time league MVP, an 8-time All-Star, 4 All-NBA first team selections, 2 All-NBA second teams, and 1 All-NBA third team. A 2-time scoring champ, a 1-time steals leader, and a member of his freshman's rookie first team. A top 50 player by my estimate, and certainly, mixing it up towards that top 30 mix all time. Next up, we have the greatest superstar from rule changes result of all time. We have a 2-time league MVP. We have Steve Nash. Steve Nash for a career, 14.3 points, 3 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 0.7 steals, and 0.1 blocks per game with 2.9 turnovers to go with that. Shot 49% from the field, 42.8% from deep, and 90.4% from the stripe. I do believe he's the closest ever to 50-40-90 career shooting. A 2-time MVP, as I mentioned, again, the greatest superstar from rule changes of all time. The Freedom of Movement Initiative essentially changed the way the league was perceived, and you have to encounter and account for the fact of the run and gun Sun, 7 seconds or less with that as well. An 8-time All-Star, 3 All-NBA first teams, 2 All-NBA second teams, 2 All-NBA third teams. Again, Jason Kidd, Chris Paul alike really causing some havoc there. And a 5-time assist leader. At this stage, I do believe that Steve Nash, along with Derrick Rose and Nikola Jokic, are the only 3 league MVPs to never go to the NBA Finals. Speaking of the NBA Finals, this is a man who absolutely thrived in the NBA Finals. The big fundamental, the greatest power forward of all time, Tim Duncan. Duncan for a career average 19 points, 10.8 rebounds, 3 assists, 0.7 steals, and 2.2 blocks. He's arguably the greatest player to never win a Defensive Player of the Year award, particularly when he was such an elite-level defensive player. 2.4 turnovers to go with those per-game averages. Shot 50.6% from the field, 17.9% from deep. Again, it wasn't a shot that he took and a clip under 70% from the free throw line at 69.6, but he was very much in that 70% range for a majority of his career. Tim Duncan, a 5-time NBA champ, a 3-time finals MVP, and I can certainly make a case that he should have had 4 of those 5 finals MVPs for those championships. A 2-time league MVP, one of the greatest individual seasons of all time in 2002-03. The only man ever to have 15 All-Star selections, 15 All-NBA selections, and 15 All-Defensive selections. His 15 All-Star selections were matched with the 2000 All-Star Game MVP alongside Shaq. 10 All-NBA first-team selections, 3 All-NBA second team, and 2 All-NBA third teams. It had 8 All-Defensive first teams and 7 All-Defensive second teams. He was the Rookie of the Year, and I believe he was the last Rookie of the Year to be a member of the All-NBA first team. I believe he was the first player since Larry Bird to achieve such a feat, and was a member of the All-Rookie first team. Tim Duncan arguably can be certainly argued as the greatest two-way player of all time, particularly if you're going by 15, 15 and 15. For 15 years, he was at worst a top 10 player in the league. Not many players have had a run like that. And if you argue him to be in your top 5, you won't hear me argue against it. Coming up next, one of the forgotten point guards of league history, but by measure of points scored and assists dished, the greatest single-season point producer of all time, Nate Tiny Archibald, the only man to ever lead the league in points and assists in the same season. Archibald for a career, 18.8 points, 2.3 rebounds, 7.4 assists, 1.1 steals and 0.1 blocks on 2.7 turnovers a game. Shot 46.7% from the field, 22.4 from deep and 81% from the stripe, so a very fair scorer. Tony Archibald, a member of the 1981 Boston Celtics championship team, a 6-time All-Star, a winner of the All-Star Game MVP. I believe when the Sporting News was writing the MVP award out as well, he was the winner of that particular season that he scored. I led the league in scoring and assists. 3-time member of the All-NBA first team, a 2-time member of the All-NBA second team, and again, that scoring and assist title coming in the same season. Again, if you account for total points by an individual accumulated for, and that is in regards to just assists and regards to points, no one comes close to Tiny Archibald. Even Magic Johnson's best assist season would not account for it, and even Wilt Chamberlain's 50-point season doesn't account for it. That's how productive he was, and that's not even accounting for and-one conversions. It's crazy how good Tiny Archibald was in the 72-73 season. One of the most underrated individual seasons in league history from a statistical standpoint. Probably the most forgotten about, honestly. Speaking of forgotten about, as far as elite all-time, we have Walt Clyde Frazier, who to me was the first truly elite defensive point guard in league history, and still has a case as the greatest defensive point guard of all time. Certainly also has a case as the greatest New York Knick of all time. 3 guys have that astute claim, and he's one of them. Frazier averaged 18.9 points, 5.9 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 1.9 steals, 0.2 blocks on 2.1 turnovers. An efficient scorer at 49%. Didn't make a 3 for his career. I believe he only played part of his last season in 1980. So make of that as you wish. And 78.6% from the free throw line. Frazier, a 2-time champ, most notable for his closeout Game 7, one of the biggest Game 7s in league history of the 1970 finals. A 7-time All-Star, a 1-time All-Star Game MVP, a member of 4 All-NBA first teams and a member of 2 All-NBA second teams. Crucially, selected to 7 All-Defensive first teams and was a member of his sophomore class's All-Rookie first team. 72 down, 3 to go. And now we have the strangest career on paper of all time. To read this guy's resume and read the years he achieved this stuff, it doesn't make as much sense as his overall resume on a blank canvas without years does. And that is the great Wes Unseld. Probably the greatest outlet passer in league history, mind you. But for me, the strangest career on paper in league history. Wes Unseld. 10.8 points, 14 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 1.1 steals and 0.6 blocks, with only 1.9 turnovers a game. 50.9% from the field. He made half of the threes he ever attempted, and he only played, I believe, 1 or 2 seasons with the 3-point line, and made 63.3% from the stripe. To read a resume of a guy with 1 championship, 1 finals MVP, 1 league MVP, and 5 All-Stars makes a lot of sense. But when you see that, again, he only made that All-NBA first team in his MVP. He only made 1 All-NBA first team. That was in his MVP season. He won Rookie of the Year as well as the MVP. He's one of 2 guys to do that. I've got a guy coming up very shortly I'm about to talk about that with. Was Rookie of the Year, MVP in the same season, All-NBA first team, All-Rookie first team in the same season, and would go on to lead the league in rebounds. But when you compile the fact that in essentially 2 years, this guy went into the Hall of Fame and can be argued to have had a top 50 career off 2 seasons, it's a strange career path to look at. But again, Wes Unseld was a bad man. He was a big man. He was a bad man. No one messed with Wes Unseld. There's footage in the 80s when Wes Unseld was a coach and a general manager, throwing people around in brawls and fights. And those players didn't dare go near Wes Unseld, who to that point would have been, well into his late 30s, pushing into his mid to late 40s. And these guys 20 years younger weren't messing with Wes Unseld. That was a bad man. Again, one of 2 guys to win MVP and Rookie of the Year in the same season. The leader of the 1978 Bullets with the Finals MVP, 5-time All-Star, an All-NBA first team member 1 time, a rebounding leader 1 time, and the member of the All-Rookie first team in that season. Next up for me, you have who I would have to consider, and I've thought long and hard about it, and I would have to consider it, Willis Reed, the greatest New York Knick of all time. And that's a big call, but I think it's a fair call when you look at the fact that Willis Reed essentially was the difference and a massive leader for those early Knick teams. Competed probably against the highest echelon of talent, position by position in league history for his position. It's very hard for me to try and suggest that anybody from New York can compete with what Willis did. Willis's career averages, they're not the greatest, but they certainly do read reasonably well. 18.7 points, 12.9 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 0.6 steals and 1.1 blocks, 47.6 from the field for Willis, and 74.7% from the stripe. Reed, a 2-time champ and a 2-time finals MVP on the only 2 championship teams in Knick history. Won the league MVP in 1970 and has probably the most underrated all-time great season ever, with MVP, All-Star MVP and Finals MVP in 1970, and by all accounts had the Defensive Player of the Year award been around, he would have been a very prime and leading candidate for that as well. Again, 7-time All-Star, was the All-Star MVP as I mentioned previous. Only made 1 All-NBA first team and 1 All-Defensive first team, and that was all in that year in 1970, a massive year. 4-time All-NBA second team, won the Rookie of the Year and was an All-Rookie first teamer, and can lay claim that the New York Knicks never lost to the Los Angeles Lakers with Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West when Willis Reed played. The Lakers won the 1972 NBA Finals going up against the New York Knicks. Willis Reed didn't play. That's how good Willis Reed was. And again, we talk about Patrick Ewing and the fact that he was denied, and I didn't mention this with Patrick, but Patrick was denied by Jordan 5 or 6 times in the playoffs. He makes the finals, defeated by Elijah Wan, his college nemesis. 99 gets injured after, in 35 games played in the regular season, the Knicks were 25-10 with him. Crucial player. Of course, we talk about Clyde Frazier, 2-time champ, the point guard of those championship Knick teams, but at the end of the day, they don't win without Willis. Willis was their captain. For me, I have no issue with saying Willis Reed was the greatest Knick of all time. And the final name on this list of 75 greatest players ever, thank you if you've listened to all of this. I wanted to give a fairly reasonable overview of a career resume and a general speak. But the greatest physical specimen to ever play basketball, potentially play team sports, the Big Dipper, Wilt Chamberlain. His stats are godly. Go and search them. The only year Wilt Chamberlain didn't lead the league in scoring or rebounding was the year he only played 12 games in 1970. 13 of his 14 seasons he led the league in either scoring or rebounding. This dude was a monster. Nightmarish. There's a reason Bill Russell had to play him differently every time. The Wilt Chamberlain for a career, the second highest points per game average in league history, but around 30.1 points, 22.9 rebounds, and 4.4 assists. Players have 30 and 20. It's a big night. A normal night for Wilt was 30 and 23. A normal night. So Wilt could just go out on any normal night and have 30 and 23 and give you 4 assists. My God. Shot 54% from the field. That's great all time, let alone comparing it year by year. 51.1% from the stripe. Was a well-known bad free throw shooter. But a 2-time champ on 2 of the 5 to 10 greatest individual single-season teams ever. A recognised finals MVP on one of those teams and was judged the best player in the playoffs in 67 unofficially. Would have won the finals MVP, pretty sure. Averaged a triple-double in those finals if you include recorded blocks. 4 league MVPs. The second man ever to have 3 consecutive MVP awards. Won the MVP as a rookie, averaging 37 and 27 or something ungodly. A 13-time All-Star, a 1-time All-Star Game MVP. 7 All-NBA First Team awards, 3 All-NBA Second Teams. Essentially lost out to the likes of Willis, Kareem, and Bill Russell. It's not bad people to lose out to. A 2-time All-Defensive First Team member. And again, you've got to remember, Wilt essentially was playing on one leg after 1970. So he made an all-defensive team after a blown knee, particularly 50-odd years ago. You think of the medical science then, and Elgin Baylor's career essentially ended. Made the all-defensive team, I believe it was 69 as well. Freak defender. Rookie of the Year, as I mentioned. 7 straight scoring titles, tied with Jordan. Jordan has 3 more. That should give you an idea. 11 rebounding titles. 4 more than Rodman, who had 7. And is the only centre in league history to lead the league in assists. And if you want to have some more idea, go and check out the records of Wilt Chamberlain. It's a Wikipedia page onto itself. He has a Wikipedia page to himself on his career records and achievements. Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest physical specimen to ever play basketball. And if you want to tell me he's the greatest player of all time again, other than playoff shortcomings, I mean, and even then, look who he had to face. You're not going to hear much of an argument from me. But in turn, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone who has tuned in, they are my 75 greatest players in NBA history. Tell me who you would like to see. Tell me who you'd be ranking amongst all of those guys. Were there some names you weren't as familiar with that pulled up? Were there some names that you were familiar with that you probably didn't think were ranked that highly? Were there some perspectives that were changed? A couple of things that you're sort of leaving the video thinking about. Tell me what you guys think. Thank you very much for tuning in to this exhaustingly long video. Hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment full of feedback you've got here. My Facebook page has been a little inactive, but I will be sharing this video on there. JB's NBA, and you can also check out my Twitter page, Justin_G_Bryan. Anyway, guys, that's been my top 75 list, the 75 greatest players in NBA history. That's been me, guys. I'm out.